simple strategy that you can use, particularly residential properties this works well with. This is a project that we did in Central Suites last year. It was a 3-month project, and the way that this came about is we could have either bought it off the vendor, which means we would have had purchase costs, the finance, the legals, the stamp duty to get in and buy the building, and then we would have also had the cost of construction, which is inevitable. If we bought that property at £280,000, we'd have lost £2,500 doing that exercise on a gross development value of 350. But the seller, their expectations were higher. Their expectations were 300,000. So what you can do in that situation. If you haven't heard about us talk assisted sales before, it's a really simple strategy that you can use if you're struggling to make, particularly residential properties this works well with. If you're struggling to make them work well, if you're buying them, refurbishing them and selling them, or is typically the way that an assisted sale works best. So this is a project that we did in Central Suites last year. It was a 3-month project, believe it or not. And the way that this came about is we could have either bought it off the vendor, which means we would have had purchase costs, we'd have had the finance, the legals, the stamp duty to get in and buy the building, and then we would have also had the cost of construction, which is inevitable. And then we would be trying to make a profit with all of those encompassing costs that you would have in any normal purchase: a purchase price, purchase cost, legals, works, and then you sell it at the gross development value. And then you obviously have sales and finance costs that come out at the bottom end of that. What I'm showing on the screen is if we bought that property at £280,000, we'd have lost £2,500 doing that exercise on a gross development value of 350. There's just not enough margin in there. But the seller, their expectations were higher. Their expectations were 300,000. So what you can do in that situation is say, okay, I will pay you 300,000, but I want to do the works on the property. You still own it, and then we'll sell it for £385,000, which is actually what we achieved. Lower costs in, there were still agency fees and legal costs to get the joint venture agreed, but we ended up splitting the profit 50-50, which is £23,000. We only spent 32 on it. So if you do the math, it's a 72% return on capital. Now this, what I'm showing you on the screen, is pre the stamp duty changes that went up from the budget last month. So what you can see here is the stamp duty on the left hand side would have been £9,900 to buy it at £280,000. In today's market, because of the changes, that would be £15,500 to buy in a limited company. £5,000 even worse off. So if we made 50k on this flip, that's 10% of the margin is gone further on the increase on stamp duty. I'd highly advise that you try and adopt this if you're flipping residential houses, because we literally signed the contract in January and we had sold it in July. So the construction was like 3 months. The sales process only took 4 months, and we had traded that site back out within 7 months. It was a crazy project to turn it around that quickly. And to give you a bit of an idea of what that did from a return on investment perspective, yes, it was 72%. That's 145% because it was just inside the 7-month mark, which is a huge return. And as these stamp duty prices have gone up, it's sort of nourishing the market to focus more on assisted sales. So that's why we love them. You can do them on much bigger scales. Ben and I did one on a mixed-use development with 7 flats where we didn't buy the building, but we handhelded the design and planning process, sold it with planning, and we both benefited from that transaction as per se. So that's what an assisted sale is. What I'm getting at is it's way more prevalent in today's market because stamp duty has obviously gone up from 3% to 5%, a 2% increase. What you have to picture is that that's actually like a 40%, I believe, increase on top of what it already was. So a huge cost saving there to be had for assisted sale markets.